Hi there! So in an effort to branch out a bit and not just be doing boring old stuff all the day, I am going to be doing a bit of a tutorial. This is hopefully going to be a world conquest, though no guarantees on that one. There's going to be a beginner to intermediate guide to the game, and it's going to be totally unscripted. And I will be playing with the base version of Hearts of Iron 4. So if you've never played this game before, welcome! It's my favorite game for a reason. I have over 1,000 hours into this game. And yeah, I know there's people out there with like 10,000 hours into this game, but I'm hoping I know what I'm doing, and I should be able to at least show you guys around the interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Single Player, New Game, and this will present me with two scenarios. There are two scenarios. There is 1936 and 1939. I am going to start in the more popular start date of 1936, at which point it'll boot up this select country screen. These are all the major countries, but rather I'm just going to go look at the big map. So Hearts of Iron 4 is a World War II game, though saying it's a World War II game is really not giving the game the service or the thing it really desires. It's really more of a sandbox. If you've ever played Crusader Kings or what's called Europa Universalis before, you're going to know what I'm talking about. But essentially, in this game, you play as a country. Could be a small country, could be a big country, could be a gigantic country, and you basically guide that country through the next 20 years or so. Generally, this is around World War II, and World War II can definitely happen, as it did historically. Or you could end up with, like, a communist revolution in France, or China going democratic, or all sorts of other nonsense. It is entirely up to you how you want the game to go around. There is a difficulty slider, though if you're, for the sake of tutorial, I'm going to click this button down here, which is basically mean that the game is probably going to happen in a relatively historical way. Which is to say, if you're familiar with the time period around here, is Mr. Funny Mustache Man here. He is going to probably try to take over the world, and the Allies will probably try to stop him. So knowing that, probably picking a country like Austria, probably not going to work out for us. However, again, for the sake of tutorial, I'm going to be picking one of the more popular countries to play for starting characters, and I think this is also the country the game tutorial throws you at, which is Italy. Italy is not the strongest country in the game, but they are fairly powerful, and they can definitely punch above their weight. So I'm going to click here to start the game. This will load us into the game. Loading. Alright, we are now in game. So before I touch anything, I'm going to explain what the interface does and what all this does. So again, we are not playing as a specific person. In this case, we are playing literally as the country of Italy. We are very much... Hold on, where is... Hold on, sorry, I need to open something on my phone so I know what I'm doing. And... I forgot how to activate that. Anywho. But yeah, we are playing as the country of Italy. We're not playing any specific person in Italy, and we will be guiding Italy through these turbulent years. Main things we want to focus on, like all Paradox games, is all these buttons here at the top. All of them are telling us something we should be paying attention to. So if you ever don't know what's going on, check these buttons up here. All of them are important. To explain the UI, we have the flag over here. Click this. This is the major government screen. This will tell you who is running the country, any national spirits that are affecting you. For instance, we have signed the London Naval Treaty, which means our ships can only be so big. We have Victoria Muelia, which means we can justify wars slightly faster. And we have our king, who is making the country more stable. We are, of course, the no-no ideology, and the majority of our country is following that, though we do have a fairly sizable democratic movement. I'll explain what all this means in a second. And we are actually occupying Libya right now, because Italy has colonized Libya, and we're actually in the middle of invading Ethiopia, but I will get to that in a second. Main thing this is going to give us to is the ability to select our national focus. The national focus tree, Italy's is rather quite small. There are some countries out there whose national focus is just ginormous, but Italy's is relatively small, and your national focus is basically what your country is focusing on at that particular time, and you can kind of plan it out. So For instance, if you want to do submarine effort, you need light ship effort first. If you want to do this, you have to do this focus, and focuses generally to another. This symbol here means that these branches are mutually exclusive, so we could either join Germany, we could make our own faction, we could make an alliance with Spain, or demand the Balearic Islands, etc., etc. We have a few options here at the top. War logistics for the war with Ethiopia, army primacy, Mare Nostrum, light ship effort. So without worrying too much about what these do, I am personally going to start with the industrial front, because this will give us infrastructure, and this will give us naval base for the war with Ethiopia. So, boop. Generally, focuses will take 70 days, and they will cost 1 political power per day. What is political power? This is the stuff you use to get your country to get stuff done. You generally get 2 political power per day, but since you're most of the time going to be doing a focus, it's going to be 1 political power per day. We are taking a slight hit to political power because our stability is fairly low, and that's because we are currently at war. Stability is basically how stable the country is. Generally, you want this to be as high as possible. Anything above 50 is good. Anything below 50 is bad. So again, we are slightly low on stability, so our factories are producing slightly less gear. We have 55% of our country supports our current war, which is pretty good. Again, you want war support to be as high as possible. The main thing this affects is how quickly your manpower ticks in when you up your conscription laws, and also it affects combat. It affects, attack and defense on core territory. It's also important for democracies, because democracies need very high war support in order to actually mobilize their economy. Manpower, we have 242,000 people in the field, 51,000 seamen, 20,000 plane, or 20,000 people in our Air Force, and we're using 18,000 people to garrison. Generally, again, you only can use a small portion of your country's population. So we have 41 million people living in Italy. We are on limited conscription, so only about 2% of that population can actually be accessed. With political power, we can, of course, up our conscription law, all the way down to either disarm nation or volunteer only, all the way up to scraping the barrel. Though obviously, as you can see, as you increase the amount of population that you're putting into the army, you're pulling people out of factories and into the army, and you start taking fairly heavy penalties to things like factory output, construction speed, which is bad. We cannot actually go up to service by requirement until we either have a heck of a lot of war support, or we begin to surrender. War support, factories. I'll get to this in a second. Fuel. You need fuel to do stuff. Fuel you get via oil or refining, and anything that isn't essentially like infantry, you're going to need fuel to work. So you need fuel for Navy, fuel for Army, fuel for Air. So if you're fielding an all-infantry army, feel free to ignore fuel, but generally you're going to be mechanizing at least a little bit of your forces. As Italy, we do not naturally produce a whole lot of fuel, so this will be something we need to worry about. Convoys, we use these to move ships around. We'll get to them in a second. And then, of course, there is experience, which we get by fighting. Main thing we're going to do now is we're going to take care of all these things here at the top. So, research. We have 4 slots to research available. Clicking on these, we open up the technology tree, going all the way from 1918 to 1946. The techs are in order. We have infantry, which is how your boots on the ground fight, and also includes your special forces, your armored cars, your APCs. We have support companies, which basically allow you to change how a division fights, giving it the ability to recon, entrench better. Field hospitals help you save divisions or save manpower. Armor, tanks, we have light, medium, heavy, and amphibious. Your tech tree might look slightly different than this. It's called some techs, like the amphibious tank battalions, I believe you need DLC for. I think there also might be starting. So if this looks a bit different, it also tends to change with patches. We got artillery, we got regular ass cannons, anti-tank guns, anti-air guns, and even rocket artillery later. We have 4 land doctrines, which is basically how we want to fight our war. They are tanks, throwing lots of artillery at the problem, planning and preparation, and glorious Soviet mass charge. We have naval. This recently got a big update. We got all different types of ships and all the different stuff we can put on our ships to customize them. We have Naval Doctrine, which again is how well our Navy fights. And again, same deal, we have Fleet and Being, which is focused around battleships. Trade Interdiction, which is focused more around submarines. And Base Strike is when you want to go like full aircraft carriers. Air, we fighters. Fighters tend to fight for the skies. And yeah, so fighters generally fight each other for air superiority. You want air superiority. Air superiority lets you see enemy divisions and also gives them combat penalties. If you'd rather your fighters directly shoot down enemy divisions, you want close air support here. Close air support generally directly attack enemy divisions and obviously destroy them. Close air support won't do the job on its own. It still needs boots on the ground. Naval bombers bomb ships, obviously. Then we have tactical bombers, which kind of do a little bit of everything. Heavy fighters, which are regular fighters, but they're more expensive, but they have a lot more range. This is generally useful in places like the Pacific Ocean, or like China, where there's not a whole lot of air bases, but there's vast distances you want to cover. Like if you're fighting in Siberia, probably want heavy fighters. Strategic bombers, fairly expensive, but also the best for just dropping loads and loads of bombs on the enemy for destroying their factories, though obviously they'd need some sort of escort. And scout planes, which provide reconnaissance, which I will explain once we get to spy agencies. Air doctrines, same deal. Engineering, this controls two things. We have electronic engineering, which speeds up how quickly you can research other stuff. Radar, and of course we have atomic and rocket research for when you really want to blow someone up. We could start researching this immediately. However, you can probably notice when I hover my mouse over it, is every technology has a date assigned to it. So, for instance, electronic engineering is 1936. So since it's 1936, we can research this without any penalty. If we went straight to atomic research, we absolutely could research it, but because this is like a 1940s technology, it would be 800% slower. So it would take us, probably wouldn't even be worth starting to research it. There are buffs you can get to your research to help this sort of stuff, but generally I don't like researching things more than like half a year ahead of time. And even then, only when you really want to. Then, of course, we have industry, which is production. We have machine tools and our industry, which helps us produce more stuff. We have construction, which helps us build stuff. Excavation, which helps us pull resources out of the ground to turn into stuff. And synthetic oil, either creating oil and rubber via refinery or refining our existing oil stocks. Right now, we have 4 research slots. So I am going to decide where I'm going to pick. For our first research slot, I'm going to go basic machine tools, because this helps us produce more gear at the factories we have. I'm going to start with construction, because we're going to be building a whole lot of stuff early game. Our third research slot, I'm going to go for electronical mechanical engineering, because this lets us attach a rangefinder to our ship and also helps our globally research faster. And we are also starting the game at war, so I'm going to use that to research support weapons, which helps our divisions on the attack and the defense. There we go, research done. Next thing is factories. And all these things up here, all of these can also be accessed by buttons over here. They all, of course, have hotkeys you can press to access them. So research is W, and it's this button right here. Next thing is construction, which is T, which is this, and this. Generally, there's 3 types of factories. There are civilian factories, which help you build stuff. There's military factories, which basically turn resources into equipment. And there's naval dockyards, which obviously make you your ships. There's some other stuff you can build, of course, like refineries and rocket sites and nuclear reactors, though you need tech to access them. There are also naval bases. The bigger your naval base, the more, more ships you can have repairing at the same time to extend your naval range. And naval bases are also super useful for, like, how much supply you can move in and out. So, like, if you ever have supply issues, usually the problem is extending the local naval base. Also talking about supply, we have infrastructure. This is how easy it is to move stuff over the distance. Higher infrastructure means faster division speed. Higher infrastructure also increases, it increases supply, it increases division speed, and also increases resources. So for instance, Venice here is producing 18 aluminum and 32 steel. If we decide to up the infrastructure, you'll see we are getting more resources from that. Though I'm not going to be worrying about infrastructure right now, because as you can see, Italy already has pretty decent infrastructure. Out of like 8 out of 10 for Rome, 6 out of 10 for Venice. The infrastructure down here is not the best right now. Though, again, we can... The main thing I'm worrying about right now at the start of the game... Alright, before we start building anything, other bases, we have air bases. Obviously, you need these to store your planes. Anti-air, in case you're getting bombed and you want to be able to shoot them out of the sky. Forts and coastal forts. Land forts help you on the defense. Coastal forts help you against naval invasions. But the main thing you're going to be building, at least at the start of the game, is civilian factories. Because in order to build anything, it takes civilian factories. You're always going to be spending So we have 20 civilian factories right now in all of Italy. Yeah, we have 20 civilian factories. We have 19 military factories and 11 naval dockyards. We're always going to be spending a percentage of our naval dockyard or a percentage of our civilian factories on consumer goods. You can basically, this is basically all the stuff your economy is spending on apart from war. The main way you make this go down is you mobilize your economy. So at partial mobilization, 25% of our factories are producing toasters, leaving us with 11 for construction. So these 11 factories will take a few months to build this one civilian factory. Generally, you don't want 11 free civilian factories. You want somewhere in the realm of like 30 free civilian factories. That's what I'd be happy with. Because again, we're going to need civilian factories. So if you build nothing but military factories, yeah, you'll have a lot of gear, but then you won't be able to build any more military factories later game. So I think it's a good investment to start with some civilian factories. So I'll queue up a few civilian factories. You also notice infrastructure. Another thing infrastructure is great at is it boosts the speed at which you can build stuff. So if I build a factory in Istria, it'll be built 20% faster. So if I build one down here in Campania, it'll be built 60% faster. So you can see I'm building in the places with the high infrastructure. This is also a reason you should consider upgrading your infrastructure nationwide. But okay, our construction is good for the time being. Military factories. Alright, also on the... before we go to military factories, I'll go to trade first. So insufficient resources. So generally, there are 6 resources in the game, and you need all of them in various levels in order to make stuff. Oil is generally what you use to convert into fuel. You don't use oil to build anything directly, you use oil to fuel stuff. Aluminum is for planes, and generally lighter stuff. Rubber is for tires. This is useful for planes. This is useful for trucks. This is useful for... Generally, I think you need rubber as well for tanks nowadays. Tungsten... Oh, it actually says it in-game, yeah. Tungsten is generally used for, like, artillery and anti-tank guns, but also for specialized stuff. Steel used for basically anything. And chromium is used for some kind of stuff. Generally not until late game, though. Chromium is super useful late game, not very much early game. But what are we spending these resources on? Well, we're spending them on making stuff. So currently we have 19 military factories, and we can spend them on how many guns we want to produce. So right now we're producing 18 guns a day. If we assign 15 factories, suddenly we're now producing 62 guns a day. If we cut back on that, we're now only producing 36 guns a day. So right now we have a number of guns on infantry equipment, and yeah, honestly, I think producing a bunch of infantry equipment is going to help us right now. You can see how many of you're producing per day, how many you need. If you don't need any, if you're just stockpiling it, this is also where you are producing your ships. So I will get to our Navy in a second. So right now what I'm doing is what I'm doing. So generally what this ship, this ship says, well, let me go all the way to the top. So the Royal Navy Conte di Caviar, this ship is requiring 8 steel and 2 chromium to build. Currently it's receiving that. If it's a red number here, that means it's not receiving that. But because this is receiving all the resources it needs, this ship will be done around 1940. There's currently 2 naval dockyards working on it. What I'm doing here is basically saying, whenever we get free naval dockyards, I want all of those naval dockyards to go to complete all the ships we currently have in production. Once all the ships we have are currently in production, then we'll worry about making our own custom ships. But yeah, as you can see, we need a little bit of rubber here, we need a little bit of chromium here. So the main way you get that back is you have to trade. Trading is two ways. So let's say I want rubber. If I click a rubber, this will show me all the countries that are currently selling rubber. I can get 8, so I can go to British Malaya and say, I want 8 rubber from you, but in return, I'm going to have to give them the use of one of my civilian factories. I can ask for a whole bunch of rubber, though I only really need 3. Generally, it's 8 resources of a unit per fit civilian factory. If you have a country as your puppet, generally that will go up. And so yeah, I would like to send this trade request. And obviously you cannot trade with countries you are at war with, but you can't trade with countries you're at war with, and there is this whole thing with like trade influence and whatnot, and countries can like embargo each other, but it's not a huge thing. The main thing you want to worry about is you also don't want to trade with your future enemies. So for instance, let's say I want chromium. As Italy, I expect to be going and fighting the Allies, assuming I plan to go down the historical route. So knowing that, I probably don't want to buy my chromium from South Africa, the British Raj, the UK, any country that is likely to join the Allies, because I know I'll basically be giving them money in exchange for chromium. So, however, I know I'll be invading Yugoslavia soon, so I don't want to buy chromium from them. However, Cuba has a bunch of chromium, and I don't think I'm going to be invading Cuba anytime soon, so I will buy Cuban chromium. As you can see here, I am buying things, so this has now created a supply link from me all the way down to Cuba. And obviously, right now we're not at war, so we don't need to worry about this, but if we were at war, we'd need to consider having submarines on this route in order to intercept anyone who tries to raid our convoys and prevent us from getting our chromium. Other things to worry about. So, I think I said we are starting the game at war. So, right now, 1st of January 1936, Italy is at war with Ethiopia. We are very unhappy at them, and we are about to try and crush them. They have 4 to 22 divisions. We have 39, so I have a feeling we'll be able to do this. So what I'm going to do here is I have some divisions right here. I'm going to draw a box around them, and I've selected these 14 divisions. By clicking this button down here, I've created an army, and by clicking here, I've created a front line, which basically says, again, I have not even unpaused the game. I've done everything I have without unpausing the game. Yeah, we now have these armies on this front line here. However, I don't want the front line to just stay there. I'd like the front line to push down to Addis Ababa, which is the Ethiopian capital. So right now, if I press this button and unpause the game, because they're fighting an inferior enemy, they're fairly certain they're going to win. Because they believe their strength is better than the enemy's strength. What can I do to tip the odds? Well, if I click here, I can assign a general to this order. Generals have a whole bunch of traits. The main thing I'm worrying about is attack skill. How good are you on the attack? This appears to be our best attacky general, so boop, he's now going to give all those guys a buff to their attack. I can even assign a field marshal to him. Where's a good attacky field marshal? You have 3 attack skill, so boop. This army has now been assigned to this guy, and both the general and the field marshal are buffing these units' attack. I can do the same thing down here, so I can select these divisions, put them here, set a front line there, offensive line to there-ish, assign them. We don't have many other good generals, sadly. That is something that Italy struggles with. And if I assign him to that field marshal, now this field marshal is commanding both these armies. This red button up here means we have some unassigned divisions still just sitting around in Italy. What I could do is, what's it called? So, alright, just to explain what I'm doing, I click here, this collects all the divisions we have. Alternatively, I can shift click this, got all the divisions here. So we're not using these divisions right now, and I don't expect Italy to try and navally invade us. So if I select all these divisions, and actually maybe select half these divisions, and right-click this general, now they're being all assigned to this general. So when I unpause, all these guys will go over here. And I could also, yeah, so let's split this in half. Generals can generally command a max of 24 divisions before they start taking penalties. So let's do that. So this general has 19 divisions. Obviously, it's going to take some time for them to come from Italy down the Red Sea to Ethiopia, but we're not in a huge rush, so I think we can do that. Next thing, we have planes we have not assigned. So we have some planes down here already ready to go against Ethiopia. We have fighters, so I would like the fighters to fight for air superiority. Tactical bombers, I'd like them to assist divisions in ground combat by doing close air support. And same thing for our proper close air support. We have some air wings over here in Italy that are not being used. So let's grab them and take them all down to Somaliland. No divisions in basic training. We're not currently training any new divisions. I'm okay with that. I want to sort out our current war before we consider training any other divisions. Obviously, this is the war screen saying we are at war with Ethiopia. I have to unpause to start the trade, and obviously we need more infantry equipment to fill in our garrisons, but we're producing a bunch of infantry equipment, so as I unpause, you will see that that thing will go away soon. So now that I have unpaused, time is now moving, and you can see our divisions are doing those orders we told them to do. The planes are flying away, our divisions are getting on boats, and they are heading down to Rome. Generally, one speed here, we're basically going at 1 hour per in-game tick. And that's totally fine. Feel free to... I know some people, when they start this game, they treat this game essentially just like a turn-based game. And they go, okay, let's do 1 hour per second. Alternatively, if you want to play at 5 speed and just go boom, 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 1 day per second, you can do that as well. Right now, I'm going to start at 3 speed. So we're at basically 2 or 3 hours per second. Our divisions are moving into position down here. And our planes are already doing their thing. Something to mention here. So we actually have a slight problem here. I've told all my planes to come down here to... Somalia, though this airport here is only fairly small. It can only hold 200 planes, and I've told like 500 to come down here. So if the airport isn't big enough, you take penalties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of these planes, tell them to fly over here to Eritrea. And hopefully we'll be able to cover the Ethiopia like that. So let's move some of these bombers over to Eritrea, because Eritrea can hold 600 planes. And obviously, if we end up not having enough room here, then we'll just have to build a bigger airport. Let's move another 48 bombers across. And alright, this says we have air wings we have assigned. We haven't given them a job. So air superiority, close air support, go to there. So we have some unassigned wings. We have tactical bombers. We want them to be close air supporting. We have these. These are naval bombers. These are for attacking ships. And Ethiopia doesn't have a navy. So I think we will just send those back to Italy for the time being, because we don't need them. And okay, let me move off the air map, back to the ground map. And oh boy, alright, so combat has happened. Green bubbles mean you're winning. Red bubbles mean you're losing. So, for instance, this guy is attacking our division. There's a whole lot of math in here that explains how all this works. But I think the best way... But right now, we're simply waiting for our new divisions to arrive from Italy. And actually, we've got a fair few divisions up here already. So let's start the push from the north. And green bubbles across the screen, that means we are winning. Wonderful. Obviously, because we're now using a bunch of planes, this is costing us fuel. So we are going to need to import oil from somebody. Don't know who's going to sell us oil. I'm going to buy it from Venezuela, because they are a fellow fascist country. So suddenly, now that we're importing oil, we'll be out of fuel in 45 days. I think we're gonna have to buy some from the Americans, unfortunately. All right, we're still we're still not in the pauses for fuel yet. Let's buy one more unit. All right, and all right, I think I'm happy with that, being able to be 7.7 months we'll run out of fuel. I do really want to be fuel positive though, so let's buy. Again, we might be at war with the Americans, so I don't like trading with them, but they appear to be one of our only main options here. Alright, we are now officially fuel positive. We are using more fuel than we are, or we're importing more fuel than we need. And the Ethiopians, they are pushing down here, but luckily we are pushing them here. And by doing all these battles, we are generating army experience, which can be used to modify our divisions. You guys as well start the counter-attack. I can also move divisions individually and decide what they're doing, like micromanage them. Generally, you don't want to do this if you're just starting out the game, because the AI battle planner it's not the smartest thing in the world, but it's usually a lot better than nothing. So however, I see an opportunity here to encircle these troops. So generally, if you win a battle here, the enemy divisions are not destroyed, they're simply pushed back. However, if you are able to capture some land behind them, then they have nowhere to retreat to, and they get destroyed, which is a lot better than simply pushing them back. So this is why it's great to encircle divisions if you can. Generally, in order to encircle divisions, you're going to need fast, or like motorized, or tanks, or something along those lines. But right now, right now we're just trying to encircle them with infantry, which is probably not going to work. But let's see what happens as the rest of our divisions push forward. So if we cut this line right here, that will prevent them from retreating backwards. Oh, we can also just capture their capital and win the war outright. But you know, oh yeah, here we go. Here's an encirclement. So these divisions have been cut off from the main force, and there's no port here for them to resupply, meaning they are now out of supply and taking penalties. And also this means when they have nowhere left to retreat to, they will be destroyed, which is great news for us. Another button's come up, missing equipment production. So our divisions are requiring artillery and tactical bombers, and we're not producing any of that. So let's fix that. Let's make some artillery and tactical bombers. Move it all the way up here. You can pick it up and put it where you want in the production queue, and we'll cut back a little bit on guns in order to start producing these things. I'll be worrying more about the composition of our divisions once the war is over. Let's try and surround their capital using our tanks. Again, we might be able to just take it outright. And let's just speed up time here, because we're not doing anything right now. Oh boy, stuff has happened. Alright. First things first, our national focus has been completed. So we now have extra infrastructure and naval bases here in Eritrea and Somalia. Wonderful. Next thing that's happened is the Germanies have, again, we've set the rest of the world to be historical, so Germany has remilitarized the Rhineland. They're not our friend yet, so that's why our answer was worrying. This does mean we can pick a new national focus. I'm worrying about our infrastructure here and our civilian capacity, so I'm going to go industrial effort, which will give us 4 free civilian factories, which will help us build more things in the future. And Turkey has also remilitarized the states. They're the Bosphorus. Yeah, we're good on trade. Okay, we have seized Ethiopia. We stole some fuel, we stole some guns. They are dead, and because there was no one else in this war, we are the only people in the peace deal. So if we click here, our demands to this peace deal is we annex Ethiopia. Done. So Ethiopia and its 2 factories are now officially ours. Wonderful. Alright, so let's take the army. Let's bring them all the way back, and let's just park them on the border with Switzerland. However, we got some army experience from that fight. mean we can modify our divisions to better suit our needs. So right now, this is our standard infantry division. It has 3 units of infantry. That doesn't seem all that good. So we can make it bigger by adding artillery, mountaineers, other infantry. I'm going to start us off with a simple... can't quite get it this big enough, so let's make our divisions bigger. So we now have... our divisions now have much more defense, because the main thing with infantry is it gives you defense. So I'm making some defensive infantry battalions. And something I can do is I can press this button and say, alright, our entire army, infantry battalions. Cut this in half. There we go. So now we have 2 armies made up entirely of infantry. It's not going to be the best when it comes to attacking, but for early game, defensive infantry is very important. Obviously, we are trading away a bunch of our factories, which is limiting our industrial capacity. But now that we're not at war anymore, we can stop our oil imports. Meaning, no, we're not going to get as much oil, but it means we have more civilian factories to boost up our economy. Other things to worry about. Air Force. We're not at war anymore, so let's take the Air Force. Don't want them guzzling down fuel. Bring them all the way back to Rome. And Navy. We haven't even touched Navy yet, so we have a fairly expansive Navy, but we're not going to be worrying it out of right now, so I'm going to hold down Shift, grab all these ships, tell them all to come down to, I guess that's our biggest naval base in southern Italy, and everyone just merge into one giant death fleet. This obviously will take a ton of fuel, but we're not going to be using our Navy anytime soon. And right now we're just going to turn on time and let time pass. Research is done on electronical and mechanical engineering, so we can now research slightly faster. Let's get mechanical computing to research even faster. Woo. So again, right now, nothing major is happening, so I've simply turned the clock on to 5 speed, and I'm just letting time pass right now. Decisions. Alright, so something has happened. So this is one of the new things they added in the DLC, is decisions you can take. These generally cost political power to do, and let's see if there's any of them worth taking. So the main thing right here is this Naval Treaty we have signed. We've signed this Naval Treaty basically saying our ships can only be so large. So the Second London Naval Conference is on, so we could straight up abandon these treaties, which would basically mean that we can make our ships as big as we want. However, by abandoning this treaty, it activates the escalator clause, which basically means everyone else can also build bigger ships, which is generally not something we want. However, as a fascist nation, we could cheat on the treaties, basically make them a little bit bigger for a little bit of political power. Though again, I'm not worried about our ships right now, so neither of these are things I'm worried about. We could improve our stability at the cost of war support. We could raid the democratic people in our country. We could realize Roman ambitions and recreate the entire Roman Empire, though that requires us to basically conquer the entire world. We could create collaboration governments if they had enough collaboration. None of those are things we're interested in doing right now. So right now we have speeded up time, and we're just shipping our boys home to go and stare at the Swiss, basically. And obviously, now that our divisions are bigger, our manpower is going down as our divisions reinforce themselves up to full strength. The Second London Naval Treaty, so because we didn't cheat on the treaties and we didn't abandon them, the Second London Naval Treaty has been signed, which is basically, yeah, so basically everyone is keeping this treaty, which prevents any super big ships from being built. Sucks, but I'm not too worried about that. Some more research is done. Let's pick up, what's something we want to worry about right now? We can pick a industry thing here. So there's 2 main paths here. There is concentrated industry, and there is dispersed industry. Both of these lead into their own paths. So concentrated will get you more equipment overall by focusing all your production together. Dispersed industry, rather, This will get you less production overall. However, the main thing it helps you with is it prevents your factories from being bombed, and it also means you can swap things between your factories easier. Personally, I'm more of a fan of Dispersed Industry, but I know there's some die-hard people out there for Concentrated Industry as well. So, and also I expect to be bombed a bunch. Like if you're playing as the United States or Canada, Concentrated might be better for you. But personally, I'm going to go with Dispersed Industry. That's going to be our technology. We have another thing to buy. And let's research radios. This will help our divisions reinforce better in fights. But alright, we are doing pretty good on the production front. We have some spare tanks and motorized, mostly because we turned everyone into an infantry battalion. We're not actually producing any fighters. We may want to consider producing some fighters. So we're producing naval. We need to produce naval bombers as well. Let's cut back a little bit more on gun production. Alright, we're producing 50 rifles a day. We have a need of 6,000 because we just massively expanded our army, but the deficit will be gone in a few months. Industrial effort is done. Let us do industrial effort 2. Actually, no, we have defeated Ethiopia, so we can now finally do triumph in Africa, which gives us stability and war support, both of which are wonderful things. We're good on that. We got a little bit of air experience, but okay, we have 150 political power. This is a big number. 150 political power means we can hire an advisor and modify our government. So we have a whole bunch of people we can pick here, from war industrialists to democratic reformers to princes of terror to captains of industry, a whole bunch of other stuff there. The main person I'm going to be interested in, however, is the captain of industry here. Why? Because he helps us build civilian factories faster. I'm sorry if I've said this 50 million times, but very much early game, civilian factories are what you want. You want to be able to build up a bigger industrial base, because if you have a bigger industrial base, you can make more military factories. If you have more military factories, you can swarm them with tanks. So right now, the main thing I want is to build up, and also Italy is also struggling because Italy does not have a giant industrial base. So like, for instance, if I spy it on someone like the Soviet Union, they have 40 to 66 factories. Germany has 26 to 39, and a country like the United States has several hundred. So Italy, with our 23, looks kind of inadequate. We can research another technology. Let's update our fighter designs. That's a good idea. Yeah, nothing major's happening right now, so the army is just getting some R&R, as it were. Once we have a bunch more guns, I can press this button to train up our divisions. So because we just mass deployed a bunch of units into the army, some of our divisions are now a little bit undertrained. So we can train up our divisions during peacetime. This will cost equipment, obviously, but it also train up our divisions and also increase our army experience so we can modify those divisions. Okay, here's something that has happened. Spain has declared war on Spain. So this is the Spanish Civil War between the nationalists, who are the no-no ideology, and the Republicans, who are a mix of Democrats and communists. We are not involved in this. We could get involved. We could straight up justify a war if we wanted to get involved. However, a more covert thing would be to send volunteers to help the nationalists. So we could say, okay, we want to take... Why are you guys still in Africa? That's weird. Let me reorganize you guys. You guys on the French border. You guys on... Whoopsie. Do we just not have enough convoys to transport everybody? That's weird. Alright, well, what we could do is we could send volunteers to the nationalists. So right now we have 2 divisions we could send. So you and you, put you in your own army. And so this will allow us, we can also send them guns. We could also just like straight up send them equipment to help them in their war. But I'm going to send volunteers. This allows me to influence the fight without necessarily getting directly involved in this fight. Because obviously we could just straight up declare war. Sending volunteers is a more subtle way of getting involved. We would like the nationalists to win. because the nationalists are fascist. So if we get the fascists to win, well, there's one more ally we might have later down the line. And also, volunteers is a great way to get army experience early game, because it lets you kind of practice fighting wars. Other things we could do. We are going to support nationalist Spain. That is what we're going to focus on right now. This symbol here means we're transferring our volunteer forces. They have arrived in Spain. So we only have 2 divisions. Probably not going to do a whole lot, but we might be able to win a few battles for them. And oh, it looks like the Germans have also sent divisions, though they have sent tanks, obviously. We'll have a tank corps soon as well. So I'm going to start a small push here, as we are going to help our friends the nationalists, and if they should win this civil war, well, that's one more ally for us down the line. The Olympics have happened in Germany. Not too worried about that. Alright, you guys pushing. Let me select it with the general instead. Push towards Oliverio. Let's go. So yeah, green bubbles mean we're winning. And because we're fighting, we're now getting a little bit of army experience. We are supporting nationalist Spain. But something else we want to focus on. We could focus on our army. That would give us army experience and more military factories and faster researching of land doctrines. That sounds cool. Let's focus on our army. Alright, bang, bang, bang. He's encircled. That's Spanish people. Let's move forward. Take Oliverio. And obviously you can see now that our divisions are fighting, they are gaining experience, which makes them better at fighting. Radio is done. What do we want to research next? Let's research modern light tanks. That sounds like a good idea. Update our tank designs when we actually start making them. Speaking of which, what's our production now? We got a lot of guns. Got a fair few tanks and motorized, fair few planes, a few artillery pieces. Still need a little bit of support equipment, but we'll worry about that once we start making. So yeah, as you can see, our investment here is definitely paying off. We're making more and more and more civilian factories, which can build more and more and more and more civilian factories. I would like some army experience. I wanted to be able to alter my divisions. Though we could air warfare, naval can't get that guy yet. We are fighting, so we could get a military high command. But also we're researching tanks right now. So let's get a Fiat tank designer, which will help us research our tanks faster and make them more reliable. That's a good idea. Alright, so we are now pushing in on the nationalists here. Computing is done, as is dispersed. Nice. Other things we can work on researching. A recon company to help our division's recon. That sounds like a good idea. And modern bombers. Those are things we shall research. So researching doesn't mean we're going to make it, it just means we have the ability to make it. 95. And we're just at super fast time right now because I'm not too worried. If you want to take it slower, by all means slow down the in-game timer. But alright, I have paused because our national focus is done. Let me set up that. What's our next national focus? I think we should worry about industrial effort. This will give us some free military factories we can use. Yeah, we are making a ton of factories, and by doing so, we have a spare like 5,000 guns, which is awesome. Bang! Alright, so the north is clear. Let's push towards Barcelona. We got those, so we have now updated our fighters. So we'd like to start producing new fighters. And spare research slot, we have a boost for Army Doctrine. So we already have started on Grand Battle Plan. So let's continue on the grand battle plans. We will be focusing on planning and preparation for our offensives. What this basically does is when I do a battle plan like this, once the divisions get to the start of the battle plan, which they will be in a second, they'll have a bar here where they start building up their planning preparation bonus, which gives them bonuses. Germany has proposed we sign a pact saying that communism is stupid. So if we sign this, Germany will like us, the Soviets will hate us. If we don't sign this, Germany will dislike us. Well, I think Germany is going to be one of our allies this game, so I will sign this pact and say that communism is in fact stupid. And alright, we have planned a bit, people are happy, this green check mark says the general thinks this plan's going to work. Let's push forward. Again, we are building up a bunch of army experience by doing this, which allows us to modify our divisions. We can make our infantry division a little bit bigger. We could add support artillery to our divisions, which gives them a little bit of bite. Though obviously this requires more guns, it requires more artillery shells. So we are now in the deficit of some 200 artillery cannons. It's probably fine. These guys are pushing. Industrial effort is done. Let us do an extra research slot. This will allow us to research more stuff. And we got some free military factories. We are in a deficit for artillery and support equipment. So let's move some over. Obviously, when you move factories off of something, if you're wondering what this bar here does, basically, the longer a factory produces a equipment, the more it produces. So when you if you move factories from one thing to another thing, they start producing very, very little, but as they go on and on and on, they will be able to produce more and more and more and more. So right now we're only producing 1 artillery a day, though as these factories gain in efficiency, it will be able to produce more and more and more artillery per day. We're also producing more stuff, so we now need steel. Who do we want to buy steel from? We want to be friends with the Germans, so let's buy German steel.
Forza, forza!
And back to pushing down here. And we could also send the nationalist guns directly if we wanted to help them win. We do have 6,000 spare guns, though personally I would like to train more infantry back here in Italy. So I want to train, let's say, that's maybe too many. So I want to train 5 divisions at a time. So these divisions require artillery. They don't require all their equipment to start training, but they will require all their equipment in order to actually deploy it. So we are going to need, and once these divisions are done training, we can obviously deploy them early if we need them right now, but right now, since we're at peace, we'll give them time to train. And alright, we have updated our tank models, and because they're developed by Fiat, they get bonuses. Next thing we're going to work on, let's work on synthetic oil refineries, because we might need oil sometime in the future. Got another 150 PPs. Let us hire, what are we currently working on? Let's buy an industrial concern, which will help us research our industrial tech faster, like that synthetic oil we just started. Back to Spain. So these are the theaters. So over here in the Italian theater, we have divisions like this, and over here in the Spanish Volunteers theater are these 2 divisions. Oh, that's something else we can do. Now that we have a whole bunch of spare guns, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this button to basically mean all of our divisions are going to start doing training. So when they're like this, they obviously cannot fight because, you know, they're lifting weights outside their bunkers. Though this costs guns, it gives us army experience, and it also trains the troops, giving them better bonuses. So they're all going to be training. Hopefully I want them all the way up to level 3, which is the Silver Star of Regular. So this guy, however, he is seasoned. You need to be in combat to get up to seasoned, but oh boy, something happened. The Regional Defense Council of Aragon has declared war on nationalist Spain. Oh boy, the anarchists have risen up. Well, that's different. Okay, so the Spanish Civil War is now 3-way. We still don't want the anarchists to win, so we will continue our push towards Barcelona. But yeah, you can only get up to regular by training. You can go up to like seasoned and even veteran troops, which are like super powerful. Though obviously veteran and seasoned troops, you can only get those by fighting. Can't train all the way up to veteran. Interwar bombers. If we swap this, we'll lose 8 days of production. Yeah, that's worth it. And okay, it's 1937 now, so this means the next level of industry is now no longer out of date. So construction and more dispersed industry. And because we took this means our industrial stuff will research faster. Focus is done. We now have 5 research slots. Wonderful. Let's focus more on industry. And for our national focus, what do we want to do? We could do fortification, Italian highways, prospect for oil. Alternatively, we could consider trying to get more stuff. So we could befriend Yugoslavia, or we could say, you know what, I'd really like to own parts of Yugoslavia. I think, you know what, Yugoslavia, I think you'd probably be better under my part. So this is not going to declare war on them immediately, but what this is going to do is it's going to make Yugoslavia don't like us and give us claims on their territory, which in addition to progressing down the focus tree, means we can justify a war against them even faster.
Attento.
France and Britain have announced an alliance, so France has now joined the Allies. You can right-click on another country if you want to spy on them, basically. The amount of information you get from them depends on your spy network. So right now we don't really have a spy network. However, because France is democratic, we do know a fair bit about what they're up to, like their national spirits and their focus tree. Germany, however, because they're fascist, we don't even know what their focus is unless we started spying on them. Speaking of spies, that's this button here. This costs civilian factories to create, but lets us spy on other countries. So let us create an intelligence agency. We can pick a symbol for it. We can name it something, and we can click here to create an agency. So again, this is going to cost us civilian factories to do this, as we're throwing money at our supply agency, but it's better to produce it now than create it later. So yeah, we are pushing through here. We're getting more army experience. So I think now might be time to consider working on our so yeah, this is the starting tank division we start with, which is a little bit crappy. We only have one thing of tanks in here, and it's mostly full of horses. Don't want that. I want more tanks in our tank battalion. So let's do that many tanks, and we'll take the horses out once we have more army experience. Because cavalry obviously is not as good as tanks. It's decent if you can't afford to produce tanks, but we definitely can afford to produce tanks. Again, we are fighting the anarchists in the Spanish Civil War, and hopefully we're winning this battle for them. Something else we could do to support them in the Civil War is we could send air volunteers. We could say, okay, would you like 168 of our planes to join you? If so, let's take some of our fighter planes. Let's say, yeah, so how many do they say? 169 planes can join. So we send over some planes. Spy agency's done. And I would like to alter this so I would have exactly 169 planes in this fighter squadron. And I'd like you guys to be fighting planes over northeastern Iberia. And our spy agency is done. Okay. Bunch of stuff we can do here. Right now we're recruiting a spy. What can we work on? I would like to form... Let's start with Path of Defenses. This gives us basically counterintelligence, which is enemy spy detection. And yeah, we're still training our divisions. Some of them have reached regular and have stopped training. Some of them are still training. And we are still pushing through Spain. The Chinese United Front has formed. Alright, so China in this time period is obviously a mess of warlords and infighting. Again, if you know your World War II history, Japan is about to declare war on them. So right now they have formed the United Front to stand together against the Japanese. And America has passed the Neutrality Act. Good for them. The Hindenburg blew up. That makes sense. Yeah, no guarantees this is going to happen exactly as it did historically, but it's going to happen in roughly the same way. Because you can never fully simulate history, but personally, I don't like the simulating history. I like going off on the wacky rails, but right now, I'm trying to keep it simple. I'm trying to simulate history. Let us push forward. And also, this video has already been an hour long, so I hope you guys learned something. Hope you had fun. I'll call this video right here. I'm going to continue the stream. However, if you learned something, let me know. And see you guys in 1 second.